Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, we could really use your help. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named the Two Opinionated podcast one of its top 100 podcasts. This is a monumental feat for this program. You know, we're a father and son team out of a small town in West Virginia, have been doing this for about 5 years. There's 15 million podcasts out there. About 40,000 of those get to the point that they're listed on IMDb. Out of those 40,000 out of the 15 million, we were ranked number 82. Something that we're just immensely proud of. We're so thankful for our listeners, our watchers, our fans. Thank you so, so much. If you would like to help us out, and we're asking for it, please. It's easy. It's really easy. It's free. If you go to IMDb, that's imdb.com, look up Two Opinionated Podcast, and just take a look at the page. That's all you have to do. I mean, you're welcome to look at the cast, look at the episodes so you can kind of see who's been on the program. Do whatever you want. But even just bringing up the page, imdb.com, Two Opinionated Podcast, bring up the page, look at it. That helps us so much. So please, if you can do anything, we would really appreciate that. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Love to have your subscription there. It's also free. And you can also check out our website, meistercon.com, where you'll find almost 700 episodes, audio and video, available on there. There's also a terrific blog from Brett, and it'll let you know anything that we have going on in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything that we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so, so much. We appreciate you so much. I can't express enough how appreciative we are of all of you. We never expected to do as well as we have, and that's all because of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy that interview. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, The Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got actor Albert Nicholas with me. So welcome, Albert.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, I've been a fan of yours, excuse me, for a while. You tend to pop up on a lot of the sci-fi fantasy shows that
I do.
I enjoy. You know, I'm a little nerdy. I've seen you on a bunch of shows.
What was your favorite one? I know I'm putting you on the spot there, but
Well, if I had to pick, I'm going to look at a couple of them here. I'd probably say the 100.
The 100. Yeah. That was a popular show.
It was.
That was you know what? That show and the amount of times I auditioned for that show, I don't think I've auditioned for a show more in my life. Must have been, I don't know, like 30 times or so. And they had kind of a trend for a while where I was really auditioning for the next bad guy,
Right.
some sort of villain. So I was just fortunate to finally snag something on that. I learned a lot. So I got to about four or five
I think it was
episodes.
4 episodes. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a decent run.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, at that time they were already, I think, man, I don't even remember. Is it season four, 5 or something like that? So they were already kind of a machine and just going and going.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting, and it was kind of a nice check mark to get after auditioning for so many times.
Right. It was one of those, like I've had a few guests that I've been chasing for years, but
Is that right?
And I'd like to just say, okay, that's never going to happen, but I've put so much time into it.
Exactly.
They haven't said no. It's mostly been conflicts and stuff. It just hadn't worked out yet. So I'm like, I got to keep trying. Maybe at some point. And then how good will that feel?
Exactly. Yeah, no, you can't give up. You can, especially if they haven't said no, it's still amazing.
Well, no is different. You tell me no, and
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
But if you're
yeah.
like, well, yeah, maybe if you check back in, a few months, and
Yeah,
well, that's been going on for 5 years.
it's gonna happen. I'm putting it out there for you.
I appreciate it because I think it will too. I think it will too.
It's got it. After you dedicate yourself enough to something. I mean, I sure as hell wasn't planning on auditioning for the show 30 times. I wish I could have just gotten it on the first, but
Right.
it is what it is. Sometimes it's
Sometimes,
not
yeah,
the
but
right
it makes it that much sweeter when it happens.
exactly. Yeah, definitely. For sure.
The 100, I was in 10 years ago. I was in a really bad car wreck, and
Oh,
so it took me a couple of years to kind of get back to being to the point where I could exercise and do stuff. So I started running, but I figured out I don't like to run outside, so I just run on a treadmill, and I run on a treadmill so I can watch a show. Well, the first show that I picked was the 100, and I picked it because that theme song at the beginning would get me kind of pumped up when I was starting to
that's right.
run.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, this is good. And then it kind of get me into the running. But I watched that entire series basically on a treadmill.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And now I mean, you said this about a decade ago.
Oh yeah,
So,
a decade. I'm
so
way
you're fine now. You're good.
all
Yeah,
good now. Yeah,
okay.
they had to
Good.
put a plate in my left shoulder, and I can't
Right.
scratch my back in certain places, but otherwise, no trouble. It's
Right. Wow.
just yeah, it just
Happy to hear that.
yeah, yeah, and it was just one of those. It was just kind of a freak accident. I was driving home and a car had wrecked on the downside of a hill on the interstate,
Yeah.
and I came up over the top of it, and he was just stopped there with a bunch of cars behind him, and I just slammed right into the back of it. I was probably going 60 or so.
Oof. Okay. Wow.
Luckily, the guy I hit was fine, but
Right.
it messed
Yeah.
me up.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's at that speed too. That's
Well, yeah, and there was no time to break. It was just
yeah.
bam.
Well, you know what? Then it's good that you got out of there with now hopefully minor
Well,
injuries.
that's right. That's right. It was bad at the time, but
Yeah.
it's well into the past now. But I always remember that because when I started running, that was the show that
That's
really.
a cool story.
Which yeah, so I have that little connection. So that's probably if I had to pick one, that's probably the one I picked because you
You
wouldn't
have some
think
sort of
pay a ton of attention running, but that's all you're looking at,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your phone or anything. So you're just so I was pretty involved in watching that. Pretty good.
That's cool because you know what you kind of just answered a question. I just came back from the gym not long ago, and the gym like they all have screens now, right?
Yeah.
All the treadmills, all the bicycles,
Yeah.
and I mean I'm just on there for a short period of time and I'm out. But I was thinking to myself the last couple of times I've been to the gym, like I wonder who because they have games, they've got Netflix now, and I'm wondering who's sitting there or running there watching this stuff. And so it's interesting to hear because I'm sure it gives you some sort of laser focus that takes away, I'm assuming, from focusing on getting
That's
tired
it.
or you're like right.
Which is what I was doing. Especially
Right.
like outside when I was trying to run outside. That's all I like. All I would concentrate on is the sound of my breath, or
Right.
I was getting too tired or whatever. But if I'm occupied with something else, I can run a little better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know that that'll work for anybody else, but it's worked well for me.
Hey, it worked for you, so that's important.
But I'll get on the treadmill and I'll run for an hour, and then I'm done.
Wow.
So it's worked. It's worked pretty good. And I'll, typically I'll hit that 6-7 miles in an hour.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty good run. I'll do that maybe 3-4 times a week. And that works pretty good. And then I'll lift some weights, on the other days. But
Okay. So I was going to ask, so are you like athletic in general? Do you like sports and stuff, or are you like
I
a
love
weightlifter?
sports.
Do you
I
okay?
played. I was baseball and track when I was growing
Okay.
up. Basketball, but I was always like a lot of us. I was good enough to be on the team, sometimes even to start. But
Right.
after high school, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. You peaked at high school for sports. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's the
enjoyed
most of us for sure. Yeah, yeah. I don't think I wish I could have been some more of an athlete. I was big in soccer.
Oh yeah,
That was probably that was my sport.
they didn't even have soccer at my school until I was a sophomore in high school. They had
Oh,
they got a soccer team there, and at that point I was like, well, I've never even played it, so
right,
I didn't try it. But now
right.
it's it's probably next to football. It's probably the most popular sport in West Virginia.
Oh, really? I guess it's gotten that popular in the
Yeah.
US in general, right? That's
It's
cool. That's awesome.
we've got we've got two major colleges in West Virginia, Marshall, WVU. Um, Marshall won national championship in soccer a couple years ago. WVU
Nice.
made the finals, and there's a small college that's located in my town that has had three national championships at the lower level. So it's
Wow.
West Virginia's become this big soccer state, and it's been fairly recent. You know, back I was in school, it was back in the 80s, but we didn't even have soccer then.
Right. Well, I guess it was mostly football, right?
Yeah, it
Football,
was mostly
basketball,
football.
probably.
Yeah,
Yep.
we
Yeah.
had the basics, football, basketball, baseball, track.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then now you've got lacrosse and you got all this
You have lacrosse too now.
we
That's
got
cool. Because
lacrosse.
I mean, I think our high school had lacrosse for sure. I don't remember if we had football. Our year, our group of guys in our year started a rugby team. We didn't have rugby until they
Oh
started
yeah.
it.
Yeah, we
And
still
I
don't have
mean,
rugby, I don't think.
yeah, that's a crazy sport. I mean, that's
When you watch
I'll
football,
watch it.
well, yeah, you watch football and you see all the injuries, and they're
Yeah,
padded up and have a
yeah,
helmet. They don't have any of that in rugby.
yeah, yeah. And even if they do get injured, you kind of see them keep going. They've got a crazy mentality on that.
Yeah, that's not the sport for me.
Me neither. No. I'll admire from afar. You do your
It's
thing
fun to go to a game.
for sure.
Kind of like hockey. I'm not a big hockey fan, but I can watch it, and especially live, it's entertaining
It's
live.
entertaining for sure. Yeah.
But
I like. I actually went to. I only saw my first football game live maybe 5, 6 years ago.
oh yeah,
One in Seattle, one in Baltimore. But I mean, that the atmosphere is insane. Just the sheer amount of people.
yeah,
I was floored because in hockey arena, I think it's definitely not that much.
right. Yeah, it's
Definitely not that much.
well, I don't think
Yeah,
there's anything bigger than those football and soccer stadiums.
no, probably not. Yeah, and soccer stadiums are probably even crazier in Europe and South America. Yeah.
My wife works for Live Nation, and
Oh,
she's been
cool.
to a few of Manchester United's games when she's been overseas working, and she said it's the craziest thing that you will see.
Oh,
It's
really?
I mean she said the whole stadium is just bouncing. It's just you're just rocking the whole time you're in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see them when you see them on TV. They're like people are constantly jumping up and
Yeah,
down, so it doesn't surprise me. They're like the whole time they're playing. It's just people are active and
madness.
watching. Yep. Yeah.
Pretty
It's pretty
great
cool.
though. If you love sports, it's pretty great.
Yeah. It's definitely cool. It's a great atmosphere to be around. It's a good time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I got us way off track. So let me back us
Oh,
up.
that's okay. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention Nancy Drew. Uh,
Mm,
Loved
yes.
you on that too, because you had
Thank you.
episodes on that. We've had Kennedy's been on the
Oh,
program.
nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so when she was getting ready to come on, we started watching it and really loved it. So
Yeah.
we've stuck with that. But I thought you were terrific on there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's I mean, that was a great show too. Good time. They made me look very timely and straighten my hair and everything. It was definitely a different look. Yeah, I had a lot of fun on
See,
that.
it took me a minute to recognize you.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I've had a lot of different because I had my head shaved for a while too, right? So it's funny because a lot of people will say that they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was you," especially now with like my curly hair and um but I kind of like that. I like that it's my career has been in a way multifaceted just based off of my hair, ironically. Um, but it's
Well, you're versatile.
yeah, and it's given me the opportunity to work on completely different roles as well. From villains to nice guys, and so yeah, definitely an asset. Definitely an asset for now. Yeah.
Oh, I missed the good hair. Back in the 80s, I had that 80s hair that was, I
Did you
could
have the fro going?
it like it I used to have a horse brush. You slide your hand
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
just go and it would But then, in my 30s, I started to lose it. And as soon as it started to recede, I was like, nope. And I just,
Yeah, you look good with a shaved head. I think that's the right call.
it looked okay. I was like, it's good enough. So now about every 10 days, I just shave it.
Hey, people like Jason Statham do it, and he's not even actually he doesn't even hide the fact, I think that's great, and he's a
Well,
badass.
who's
So.
going to tell him he's wrong?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Who's gonna challenge him and be like, yeah, you should probably shave it completely off? Probably no one.
Yeah, nobody's going to tell him that.
No, no, no.
So, Albert, tell me a little bit about what got you into the entertainment business. 'Cause that's a difficult business to go into. Why'd you want to go into acting?
Oh, yeah, definitely a difficult business. So I the first time I acted, I was in fifth grade. I still remember it till this day because we did a show. I was in a French school, and we did a show for Christmas time. It's pretty much the birth of Jesus, very on point. Um, and I was sort of the narrator, and at the time when I didn't really think anything about it. I just wanted to try it out, and yeah, I honestly never felt so invigorated. So I remember afterwards, just kind of it kept gnawing at me, and I would bring it up to my parents here and there. And in Ottawa, you didn't really have, you certainly didn't really have film or TV
Right.
at the time. And you didn't, theater was all right, but there wasn't many programs. So I kind of put it on the back burner. And then when I turned 19, I was in university, and I just couldn't really find my way. Was really struggling with figuring out a path, and
Like a lot of us
um,
do.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wish they would keep us in high school just a little longer
Yeah.
sometimes, just so that we could figure it out. But yeah, I was really
I don't know what
struggling.
we're doing at 19,
No,
18, or
I
whenever
barely
you
know what I'm
graduate.
doing now. You
Oh,
know
you're
what I
right.
mean?
That's the thing. Yeah, I think a fifth, maybe a sixth year of high school wouldn't have been terrible.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of they really just shove us out there and say figure it out, which it is what it is. But um, yeah, I was really struggling, and I had so it's funny. I have psoriasis, and at the time I was fully covered. Like you could not see real skin at all,
Yeah,
and
and
so
that's
my
tough.
that's tough. Yeah, yeah. And so I was having a super identity crisis, and my dad was the one who said, "What do you really want to do?" And I said, "I kind of want to really try acting." And he made some calls and found a director in the city that would work with me, and they took me in. I did after that. I like within like 5 years, I did about 40 theater shows or so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I got honestly best training possible. I had some amazing directors that really worked me hard. Um, and I just fell in like even more in love with it. I think I was always kind of a my my parents. I like to say I was an entertainer. They say I was a shit disturber.
Yeah.
So I mean, it depends which side of the pendulum you're looking
Be
at,
both.
but it could be both exactly. But so I always had that in me, and then I finally made the decision to go out and try film and TV.
Yeah. What was your first film or TV role?
Supernatural.
I was going to guess that one because
Yep.
it's been out forever, but I didn't check
Yep.
to see what point of the show you were on. So I was like, well, it's probably early, but it could have been a little later.
I was very late. I was on season 11.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I took I mean, film and TV, it took me about 5, 6 years to book my first thing. It was a really tough go at it. Um, and Supernatural, funny, is kind of like a rite of passage in Vancouver
Oh,
in a
yeah.
way,
Well, it
you
was
know,
out for so long,
so long.
and I'd have to look, but I think every single actor I've talked to from Vancouver has been on Supernatural, or at least
Probably
tried
at some
out
point.
for it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a great time. That was talk about a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And you got into that set, and there was no kidding around. They just moved, and again, just another great starting point to learn.
When you were on a couple episodes,
Yep, yeah, I
that's
was. It was fun
great for a
actually.
role.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a great first role. Um, I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a lot of fun on that. It was right in my wheelhouse at the time too, because I was freshly shaved head, so it was very much bad guy. Um, yeah,
Is that
yeah.
is that the criteria they call, and they're like, it's an audition for a villain?
You know what? I don't I don't know if that is the criteria. Maybe it's just, but it felt that way because that was very much what I was going out for when I had my head shaved. I
Yeah.
don't think I went out for many um, good Samaritans that way. They all had a bit of a rough past. Yeah. But but I enjoyed it. You know what? Sometimes I feel like it's more fun. There's just a little bit more room to understand why someone would do these kind of things, and that's kind of the part of acting that's really fascinating. Um,
Well, yeah,
especially
the I think it would be more fascinating to play a role that you don't really have those characteristics.
exactly, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're really acting.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
yeah,
draw on yourself for those type of roles.
yeah, for sure. And trying to find the truth in that, and finding, how do you make that truthful on screen when it's so far from
Well, yeah, you got to figure out that character's motivation for being
it,
the bad
it,
guy. You know, what caused
exactly.
them to be the bad guy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They
And to
think that
them,
they're the bad guy. They may not
that,
think that they're the bad
I
guy.
was just about to say that to them, they are not the bad guy, right? They believe what they're doing so deeply that it's the right thing. So, yeah,
You know, Supernatural was out for so long. I've talked to actors that were on it like in the first couple years, and then
hmm
came back like 10 years later for a completely different role. So,
yep,
because it
yeah,
was far apart.
yeah. Well, and plus you're running out of actors in Vancouver as well at that point because what did they do? 13 seasons, I think,
It was something crazy. Yeah.
something like that. So, every season's got about 20 some episodes at that time.
Oh, there's got to be at least 300 or so of those.
Yeah, you're going through a lot of actors, so it doesn't surprise me that they were recycling. Put
Double.
on a mustache, no one will know.
That's it. You know, if it's a completely different character and it's a smaller part, maybe,
Yeah,
maybe. But,
yeah.
as a fan, you're going to recognize them if you've seen them.
Oh, for sure. And they have diehard fans, right? So I'm sure that there's like probably a whole forum somewhere where they spot them and point them out.
I'm sure there is. My first acting job, and I'm not an actor, but my first acting job was also in fifth grade. I was the
Right.
second mate pirate for
Okay.
Toyland.
For
And
what?
for Babes in Toyland.
For Babes in Toyland.
Yeah. So my best friend was playing the villain, and they were doing the tryouts for the first and second mate for the Pirates, and second mate was the better role, had more lines. So that's the one I went out for, and I got that one. At the time, I could do like an elementary school version of a pirate accent. I guess that's why I got the role.
And you didn't want it
No,
didn't make you want to be an actor at all?
no. What it did was I discovered that I'm kind of an introvert. So when I got up on stage, I was like, oh, yeah, I did it. I didn't really hesitate or anything, but I didn't really enjoy it either.
Interesting. Yeah.
I was like, not for me. Of course,
Yeah.
that was, little did I know, 40 years later, I'd be podcasting, and
Right.
and things change. You get past some of that. I'm still an introvert. If I've
Right.
if I've had a long day of talking with people, I got to have some downtime.
For
You know,
sure.
but
Yeah.
I don't have that necessarily that fear. But now the desire to act has never occurred with me. I love it. I love watching people do it. I love talking with actors. I don't need
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, you know what though? I can empathize with that. I'm very much an introvert. I'm my girlfriend always laughs because she'll be like, we'll hang out with people, and then she'll be like, that was good enough for you for a month, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, I'm worn out. I need a month now to myself. Yet going on stage is probably where I come alive, right? So there's that weird duality there where
Well,
my
you're
so I
playing a
guess
role. Does that help?
yeah,
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, for sure. It's embodying something different. It gets me out of my shell in some way, right? So for you, if you kind of found that in podcasting, it's your version of it. I feel.
It's like I spent 20 years running call centers. That's for DirecTV
Really?
or Ticketmaster. That's where I spent most of my adult career.
Okay.
I had the worst times, even in meetings, just speaking up, and it was usually me running the meeting. I would struggle with that, and
Right.
my son came to me wanting to start a podcast, and he's a lot
Mhm.
like me. He didn't want to be on camera. He wanted to do the editing and the marketing stuff, and I was like, "Well, I'll try. I'll give it a try." But then I got on here and I liked it, and it's we've had close to 800 episodes now, so I'm a lot
Wow.
more comfortable than I was when we started. But it's completely fixed me. I got to be on stage with William Shatner when he came through town. I did
That's
like
awesome.
an interview up on stage with him, but in front of an audience. And I never would have been able to do that 20 years
But
ago.
you felt more at ease. You
I
were.
felt fine. Yeah, I felt fine.
That's
I was
awesome.
nervous, but once I
Yeah.
got out there, I was fine. Once
Yeah.
once we started talking, it was just like it was just us, so it was fine. When I had to go
Yeah.
out and introduce him and talk to the audience, I had a little trouble, but it went fine.
Right.
So this,
Yeah.
for me, the podcast has really helped me come out of my shell. Let's say,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it's been great, and I'm sure
yeah,
acting's done that for you. If you were an introvert,
for sure.
if I mean, when you have a job, are you nervous going into it?
Um,
Or are you pretty comfortable now? Like I'm nervous ahead of time, but once I start, once I get on screen, I'm fine.
you know what? I think with film and TV, I still have a bit of those nerves, and not really sure why, but with theater, no. I think I don't know. I don't know theater. I did so much theater when I started, and
Comfortable.
there's just something about it that I felt so comfortable doing. But film and TV for sure, there's always a bit of those jitters. But once you're in it, and you're in your environment, you're with the people who are your counterparts doing it, everything kind of starts falling into place, and it washes away, and you
I mean, as
laser
long as you're
focus.
prepped ahead of time, you're fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And plus you can't really it's very different because theater, you're rehearsing it for months on end, right? So you know exactly well, I mean, anything can happen when you perform it, but you should know exactly where it's going, how it should be going, etc. Film and TV, you can prep it as much as you want, and the director or some producer, the showrunner, your counterpart could throw you completely for a loop, and everything changes. So you just got to go with it.
Yeah, you got to be pretty flexible.
Yeah, yeah, you just got to be present.
Yeah, yeah. So you've had a couple of big projects recently
Mm-hmm.
with that. So Last Airbender, yeah,
Yes,
you
Avatar:
played that
Last Airbender.
on there.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So I play Captain Dixit, which is an Earthbender captain who captures. Well, Uncle Iroh, which to me is Admiral Iroh, is brought to me that he's captured by other Earthbenders, and I take it upon myself to make sure I'm bringing him back so that he can essentially face his punishment.
Right.
And I've got my character's got a very personal vendetta against him, and yeah, that I mean, this that show was awesome. It was a
Yeah.
great show to be on. I'm
Were
so
you a
happy.
fan coming in?
It's funny. I didn't know what it was, and then I didn't even know what I was auditioning for at all. And then when I learned what I booked, I was like, oh, I should look this up. I wonder if it's on Netflix. It just happened to be on Netflix,
Yeah.
and ironically, it was a COVID Christmas, so I was sick, COVID in my mom's basement, and I crushed all three seasons in maybe a week or two, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. The story is so fleshed out. I wonder. It makes me wonder the person who wrote it or created it. Like, where is this person's mind? Like, what's going on in the mind to create something like that?
I always
It's just
wonder that too, because their mind's working different than the rest of us.
so different. to be able to build all those worlds too and have everything so
I mean, just keeping track of it.
yeah, yeah. It's phenomenal actually, and I think that they did an amazing job with the live action version of it.
Netflix is getting really good with the live action versions of anime. I mean,
Yeah, One Piece was a big one too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So um, I think I think a huge part of it for Avatar was the casting, like the character after character. You look at the casting that
pretty
it's
amazing.
uncanny
Yeah.
to the anime version of it. So yeah, it's awesome. It got some great reviews, and I'm just happy for them that they got a season 2 and 3 so they can finish off the storyline.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. My stepdaughter has been a fan her whole life. She absolutely loves it, and so I relied on her. I was like, you tell me if this one's good, and then I'll watch it. And she said, yeah, it's excellent. So
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, we binged it pretty quick. It's excellent.
yeah, it's pretty cool. What would be your nation if you had to pick one? Where would you be?
We've had this conversation,
Have
and
you?
I don't know. I go back and forth with that. I mean, if because your character, you had a character on the show, but if you could just choose, I mean, what would you choose?
If I had to choose, um, oof, it would be between Earth and Fire. Ironically,
I think for me, I'd
um,
choose fire, but it
it's
depends on the day. I've said Earth a bunch of times.
yeah, Earth is really cool. I mean, Earth is really really
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Um, you know what it is? Is I think Fire by nature would be what I would pick, but Earth is probably what I need.
Right?
So that's why I'm like always kind of talking like
I
which
don't
one
know
would
that I
I
need to do
pick?
anything associated with fire.
Yeah, true, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think maybe leave it to the professionals. Yeah.
But yeah, I've had that conversation with my stepdaughter, and she'll ask that, and I'm like, oh, today.
It
And a lot
depends
of
on my
times it was
mood.
depending on whatever episode I just watched.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's um I think the next I don't know, but I'm anticipating the next season being somewhat earth heavy if it
Yeah,
follows kind of the trend of what the anime was.
yeah, yeah, and I
Uh,
think it will. I think
yeah, the visuals are just
oh,
stunning.
it's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the dialogue was good, casting was excellent.
Hmm.
Um the cinematography was really strong. I mean, it just the
Yeah.
whole thing. It was like you're watching a movie every episode.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it needed to be that for it to be so successful because when you do something like that where you're taking on something that's been done and had such great reviews, it can be very difficult um, to succeed. I feel like just we've seen it time and time again where they adapt something and everybody gets upset about it because they're so connected to the
Right.
original. So yeah, it had to feel like a film for it to really succeed, I think.
Well, we saw it. They did Cowboy Bebop too, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought the first season was really good, um, but a lot of people didn't think it matched up to the anime, and that's probably why it didn't get the second season. But
Yeah.
so that was kind of their first Netflix first attempt to live action, and I thought it was good. And I loved the cartoon. But
Diehard fans they're brutal.
tough.
They're
I mean, if
brutal.
you don't get
Yeah,
it
they're
right,
tough.
there. I mean, we've seen that with Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah.
It's caused a lot of people to have
Yeah.
angst.
And they're, I mean, Hollywood in general has been doing a lot of reboots of stuff, right? And they kind of flop, unfortunately. And it's because the originals they have a very emotional connection to people.
Yeah.
People
Well,
got a
and
real
there's a
emotional
reason
connection.
that particular cast worked together. They just
Mhm.
sometimes a cast just clicks and everything with the script and it just works. It's hard to recapture if you reboot it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Even if
Yeah,
you're bringing the whole cast back, which usually they don't. It's usually one or two of the cast and then a bunch of new
that
people. And
feature.
that
Yeah,
chemistry doesn't work. Not
yeah,
all. Yeah, we
yeah. No, I agree.
like Frasier came back out and we love Frasier, and I thought it was pretty good, and he's as good as he ever was, I thought. But you missed all the supporting characters
Right.
from the
Yeah,
original.
I didn't see the reboot of that, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
It was good. Like if you'd never seen the original, you probably would have really liked it. but it wasn't as good as because you missed all the the other characters because it was even though it was centered on Kelsey Grammer, it's more of an ensemble show,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's tough to
Like Seinfeld,
Oh, Seinfeld, yeah.
right? Yeah, could you imagine them rebooting Seinfeld, but then they don't bring up all the other characters? It was
It
just
wouldn't work.
something. Yeah, it would be missing so
I guess
much
it
of the show.
could. It might work, but it's not going to work the same.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of those, especially sitcom actors, when that show ends, sometimes they struggle finding another good role.
Yeah,
On that
I
for
think
so
that
long, they get almost not really typecast, but a little bit typecast.
yeah, they're for sure they get a little pigeonholed, but I also like I wonder if it's because what you said they get tied up for so long
Yeah.
that they can't really do much other work, and then by the time that they can, people have moved on
Yeah,
to
they've lost their connections, basically.
yeah, and other
I don't know
people that
what
were
the.
there.
I mean, if you had a chance to be on a show for 8 or 10 years, you'd have to do it.
That'd be a tough one. Yeah, it's you know what? Yeah,
Just
of
for the
course you'd have to
security.
do it. Yeah, exactly. Job security, financial security.
Well,
It's a
you know
tough
how
one to
that goes.
pass up.
Once you get into like a regular on a show and it hits the third or fourth season, you start making some pretty good money.
Yes, you do. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, especially if you're in the US and you're getting residuals if the show's so popular. So it's yeah, it can be very lucrative.
I saw the actor that played Charlie in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Oh yeah.
the original. That's the only role he ever did. His only acting role. He became like I've forgotten that. Like he's either a veterinarian or like I think it was a veterinarian, but
Oh wow, you went a complete different
that's the
path.
only acting he ever did. But he still like every 3 or 4 months gets a check for like $10 or $11.
Hey, in this day's economy, that gets you I'll get you a bag of chips, I guess. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
that's
I,
pretty
I
cool.
thought that was kind of amusing because that's probably what 50 years ago or so when
That,
that came out, and he's still
yeah.
still getting some residuals off of it.
Hey, you know what? That's great. That's awesome. Though. At least they're still acknowledging if they are playing it that, they're acknowledging his work. So
Yeah,
good
he's
on
getting a
them for
little
that.
something, so that's pretty.
Yeah, for sure.
So your other one on Netflix was the New American Girl.
Yes, American Girl, Corrine Tan. Yeah, that was so we shot all that actually in Calgary or just outside of Calgary.
Yeah,
It's very fun. It's a short movie actually, but it's super fun. Great for the family, great for kids. That was really fun. That was really fun to shoot. We had a great time working with the dogs as well.
yeah.
Um, the dog, man, there was this one I'll never forget. There's this one shot. We could not stop laughing because we're on this massive hill and we're supposed to be essentially searching for someone that's missing. And some of us had dogs that were very eager to find
Right.
someone that's missing. And as soon as action went, so many of us would flip because the dogs would just run. It's their job. They were actually
They're
search and
going.
rescue
That's right.
dogs. Yeah. So they would just bolt and I flipped so many times. It was a great time filming. Made some good friends there. It was actually ironically the second time I worked with the lead Mia,
Oh, really?
but indirectly. So the first time I worked with her was on another show called The Astronauts, where she
Oh,
led
yeah,
she
yeah.
led the show, and I was in the control room. So we never had scenes together, but it was
You
great
were
to see
Charlie
her.
on the Astronauts.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. But it was great to see her actually and actually work with her this time in person. Her and her sister Kai just they were great. I mean, they're just so well cast again.
Yeah,
Perfect cast for that story and those characters.
yeah.
Uh,
That's all. Yeah, it's really good. My oldest, who's got kids of her own now, but
mhm.
she collected the dolls growing up,
Oh,
and
she did.
so now her daughters play them with them, and she still watches when they have a show or a movie come out. So yeah, that's and have you. Well, I'm sure you probably haven't, but if you go to, I think it's in Chicago, they got the American Girl store, like the warehouse. And that's a big thing. A lot of people travel just to go, to see where they're made, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that they had the warehouse there. I know they have they've got a store in Century City in LA.
Yeah,
I
yeah, they
think
do.
that's
You're
where
right.
I think that's where the girls actually had their sort of premiere or kind of press there. Um, and I thought, those two girls are sisters as well. I don't, so it's just a great, it's a great, it's a great casting. The cast in general was great.
And it's family entertainment, which we don't
Very
see as much of
exactly.
anymore.
Yeah. And it's a fun watch. It's a quick watch. So, I mean, just so many of my friends watched it with their kids, and my sister watched it with her
Yeah.
kids, and it's just an easy watch. And like you said, fun for the family.
Well, we had Jason Wong has been on the show.
Yeah.
He played the dad.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And
He's
I
a
didn't
great guy.
realize that. I remember him talking about it. Like when I saw him on there, I was like, oh, yeah, we had that conversation when he, but it'd been a while since he'd been on. So they hadn't even started filming, for it yet. So he
Right.
was talking about being on it, but he hadn't done it yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I'd
Yeah,
forgotten. And then when we turned it on, I was like, oh, yeah, Jason's in that.
yeah, he's a great guy. He's super nice.
I think he did, because I know you did an episode of Two Sentence Horror Stories. I think that's a CW show.
I
I
did, yeah.
may have did one of those too.
I'd have to ask him that. I actually don't know. It's a good question.
I may not be right about that, but just something tickling in my head. I'm like, I think he may have done an episode of that.
He may have. Those, I mean, that's tough to tell because they were
It's like an
um
anthology.
thank you. I was blanking on the words. That's exactly what it is. So every cast, every episode's a different cast.
Yeah.
Um
Twilight Zone or Outer Limits, something like that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. But super cool show. Yeah, I got to work with Kevin. He was great. But yeah, that was another great show, completely different, completely different genre, and a lot more spooky and a lot more, I'd say, grimy in a way. It was a
Grimey's a good
very,
word for that show.
yeah, grimy. It was very hard. Actually, our episode was pretty heartbreaking too. When the storyline was pretty heartbreaking, and I'm sure it actually connected with a lot of people because it dealt with drug abuse and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
It's an interesting show because it's well written, and you get you could drop in on any episode and not be lost,
yeah,
because
exactly.
with
Yeah,
that, which is kind of nice. But they're kind of powerful episodes. Some of them really do kind of stick with you for a little while.
they do. Yes, and they're short episodes too, right? So they very impactful in a very short amount of time.
Aren't they? Is it a half hour or is it an
I
hour?
think so. Yeah, I think it's a half
It's a
hour
half hour.
episode.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
it's quick.
yeah. That's especially today. That's quick. Everything's over 60 minutes now. Um, but yeah, a lot of those episodes had some sort of. I'm sure there's an episode for everybody to connect with because they all had some sort of thing that people struggle with,
Yeah.
and that was kind of their thing. They would take that and then how do you essentially make it grimy and then have some sort of impact for people to possibly reflect or have whatever sort of emotional reaction to it.
Yeah, which we did.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, you got to play an agent on X Files.
Yeah, you know what? I got to play the season 12, I believe. It was a reboot. Is it
Yeah,
season
it was
12?
coming. Well, yeah, when it came back. Yeah,
Yeah, when it came back. Yeah, that was a trip because I
I mean,
had
it's like a
always,
bucket list item. I think if I was an actor to get
especially
be
again
on
for
X
Vancouver.
Files.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So X-Files, to me was sort of the rite of passage before Supernatural. And
Yes.
it's, so for it to come back and be able to work on it was just, I mean, it was a little surreal. And I've always wanted to be on that side of a scene where I'm the agent or the detective that's essentially spitting out this case
Yes.
information or what's going on the crime scene. Um, so it was, yeah, it was pretty surreal to do. Again, another set that was so efficient.
Oh,
Uh,
they had it down.
for sure. And I mean, they have been doing that for years before. But yeah, X-Files was great. It's kind of sad that they didn't get renewed more than that, but that's the way of our media right
It
now, right?
is. It is. And I thought the reboot, it was one of them that did pretty good job with it. Like it was,
I think so.
we enjoyed it. Like we'd have kept watching if they'd have had that one out, where a lot of times, a lot of these shows that they're kind of remaking these other ones, or, they're calling it a reboot, but it's not really a reboot because it doesn't bring everybody back.
Mm-hmm.
So I call that more of a remake, but those I don't think work as well. But if you're actually bringing the whole cast back and continuing the same story just years later, maybe. And I thought X-Files was one that did it.
Yeah, it's just it. Yeah, things seem to. You know what? It's so unpredictable because there are some things on Netflix or whichever network that I'll watch, and I'm thinking this is definitely going to get a season 2 or season 3 or
Nothing.
renewal.
Yeah.
Nothing. Just
So
absolutely.
I think
So
there's so much content, and
so
a
much.
lot of it is so good that it's just
Hmm.
hard to build an audience.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
tough.
yeah,
There's so much competition.
yeah, and on so many different platforms,
Yeah.
and you can't expect everybody to have a subscription to all. So yeah, it's
I
interesting
remember,
times.
go
What's
ahead.
that?
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say it's an interesting time, but it's going to be interesting to see how it develops or how it changes in the near future because I who knows if it's sustainable. I have no idea, you
I
know.
think you're going to see all the streamers buying each other out. That's what I think is going to happen.
Oh, you think so?
We'll have less,
It just
because they're going to merge.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's how I kind of, because there's so many of them right now.
There is, yeah.
There's no way all of them are going to make it. you know,
No, no, there's no way. I mean, if they all do, then
oh,
man,
good for us, I guess.
good. Yeah, I guess there's more content for us to watch. Yeah. Um,
I remember watching the premiere of X Files back around 1990 or so when it came out,
right.
and I loved it immediately because I was all into the sci-fi stuff, still am. But Duchovny and Anderson, they weren't that good at actors when that show first came out. Like you're watching it and are like, they're not very good, but they improved
It
so.
developed to the show.
I mean, it was fast. By the even by the end of the first season, you know,
Right.
they were pretty watchable as actors. But I just remember that first couple episodes, it was kind of rough. And I don't know that it was their acting ability. Maybe it was more the writing, and they were trying to find their way. But they struggled a little bit for the first few episodes, even though the content was good enough. It still grabbed everybody's attention.
I think that can. I think you know what. That's probably a very common thread in most shows. I assume
Okay.
because
Yeah.
right, like everybody's trying to find their footing. The writers are trying to find it. The
They haven't
directors trying
developed
to
the
find it.
chemistry quite yet
Yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah. Everybody is
And
just
which
trying
is
to figure
why
out.
a lot of shows fail because they don't even get the chance.
Well, nowadays, yeah, no, it's true. They only get 10
I'm
episodes,
glad
and
they stuck with X Files because it turned out, now,
yeah, what an iconic show.
I mean, she's a pretty decorated actress now, and Duchovny, he does all right.
he's, yeah, he's not struggling. He's doing
He's
all
not
right for
struggling
himself for
there.
sure.
I had the Smoking Man came on the show a couple years ago, and that was of the best time. I was so
That's
excited.
awesome.
I was so excited. He had a book out because he teaches.
Oh,
He teaches more now than he acts, but yeah, he was pretty awesome.
I didn't know he taught. That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, he wrote a book on acting, basically, is what. So he came on to talk about that, and they said they're like, "Well, he's coming on to talk about a book," and I was like, "He can talk about whatever he wants."
Right. Yeah. You know what? Just let him take over for sure. I
I was
mean,
like,
that's
"I'm
again an iconic character, right?
fine." It's like that's good with me. Let's see. I seen you on Van Helsing, Legion. What was Lucifer? That was the other one.
Lucifer. Yeah, Lucifer. You know what? Lucifer was that whole time was a trip because I think most of those were probably the same year.
Yeah.
Um, Lucifer and right before that I was on Shut Eye. Those two shows kind of have a special place in my heart because um well, I was a huge fan of Dexter, massive fan of Dexter. And one of my favorite characters on that show was played by David Zayas, who I got to work with on Shut Eye. So I mean, man, I was thrilled on that shoot. And then about a month later, I booked Lucifer and I'm meant to play Amy Garcia's brother, who happened to play David Zayas' sister on Dexter. So I was having
Meant to
like,
be.
oh my God, it was meant to be. And I was just having a trip. I just remember having this conversation. I all got on a phone call just to talk about it because it was in such a condensed time. Um, so I haven't done those two shows have a very special place in my heart. Lucifer was still in my, it was still one of my more fun experiences. Just the whole atmosphere was great. I loved the character I was playing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, everything about it was just kind of right in my wheelhouse. It was the first thing that I was doing where I was wielding a shotgun, which was just it gives you a whole different
It's just
attitude.
every day.
What's that?
Not something you do just every day.
No, you know, I just don't just walk around with a shotgun and collectible cars in my garage. Um, yeah, it was a great time. I've been very fortunate to work on some good shows in Vancouver. So the Lucifer is definitely up there on my list
Yeah. It's
for
based on a comic book.
yeah, yeah, and they had a great run too. I mean, they got canceled, and the fans were the ones who really
That's right.
brought that show back, and rightfully so. I think.
It's a good show.
Yeah, it was a great show. It was well done.
Yeah. My that same stepdaughter that was the Airbender fan, she's also a huge Magicians fan. So she said that you played a guard on there.
I did.
I didn't know that one. She's like, yeah, he was a guard.
Yeah, you probably would not recognize me in that one. The costume I had on, you would never recognize me. That was that was like earlier on in my career. But again, what a trip. I played a guard, and I'm trying to remember. We're guarding the main cast is trying to get through to to see someone or to save something. I forget, but I just remember it was a
Guarding like a portal.
so something like that. It's like a portal to something.
Because I
But
watched the Magicians, but yeah, I didn't recall that you've been on there. But I always play that game with the family. Be like, this is who I'm interviewing. What have you seen them on? And that's
right,
what she said. I knew she'd say Last Airbender, but she said Magicians too.
pretty sure I had a hat on too that you wouldn't recognize me. Honestly, I wish I had a picture of the costume. It was like a giant X
I kind of
of
remember it
Sadrich.
when it just you talking about it. I kind of remember that. It's just been a while since I
Yeah,
watched those, but yeah, that's why I said you were on like a ton of the nerdy stuff,
a lot of sci-fi.
which that's Vancouver.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
They that's kind of well timeless. You were on that one.
Yep, Timeless was cool. I actually got to play a French guard there, so I think it's my only credit where I get to speak in French.
They
I
like
haven't
you as
done.
a guard.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I
Working a
give
lot
off
of
that vibe. Maybe I give up that vibe. I don't know. I
well,
remember
because Planet of the Apes, you were like a
I was
tap.
a guard. I was a guard. Yeah,
Was
that's
it
right.
Van Helsing? I think you played a guard.
I was a guard. Legion. I was a guard.
Only
Some sort of guard. Yep.
Legion, also based
Um,
on a comic book.
yep. Yeah. Trying to think now. All the other
Well,
guards.
iZombie was a comic book. You weren't a guard in
I
iZombie.
was not. Ironically, on iZombie, because you were talking about that with Supernatural earlier, how
Yep.
people would sometimes be on the show twice.
Yeah.
iZombie, I ended up being on that show twice. So I did it season 2, I think, where I play a lab technician.
That was Frank, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
That's the one I remember.
You have a better memory than I do. You just jogged my memory on that one. And
Yeah, that's
then,
the one I remember. But yeah, you were on a different episode too.
yeah, later, one of the last seasons where I played a professional dancer, which I am
You
not.
dance? I was gonna say, do you dance?
Not that well. No, not enough to say I'm professional. Not even enough to say that I'm somewhat amateur.
Well, yeah, but did you have to dance or just show up and say, I'm a dancer?
I just have to show up and look really good in whatever suit they put me in. But it was actually a trip to come back because I had never been asked to come back on a show before, and it was really the showrunner who had invited me back on there
That's
to to just, it feels great. Yeah, of course it felt, you work your whole career to just, it's funny, as in acting or in the film industry in general, I feel like a lot of it is trying to fit in, or a lot of it is trying to get that recognition, um, or that acceptance, which you should not, which is tough because you should not really be working it that way, but we're human, right? So that's very much how people see things. So just those little things like that, where you're asked to be brought back on a different season just because someone enjoyed your presence,
That's right.
the first time they got to meet you, is very validating. And it's, you kind of hold those moments in your back pocket when you doubt sometimes what career you're doing,
Well,
or why
yeah,
you're in
I
this.
mean, we all need that, right? That little bit of validation, like, yes, I should be here.
Yes, yeah, for sure, for sure. That's that'll never go away, I don't think, but it's part of being human.
Well, that's it. We're all just a bundle of nerves.
Yeah, very much so.
Which that's why I get, not to get into it, but that's why I get aggravated with people right now, because we are at times a little more judgmental than we have been in the past.
I
And what
agree.
we should be doing, because we're all struggling a little bit right now, is we should be lifting each other up, but we don't do as good
Mhm.
a job of that as we should be.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a really difficult time just in the world in general.
Yeah.
And
A lot of rough stuff going on out
yeah,
there.
a lot of rough stuff, and people are angry in
Yeah.
some way, right? Whatever, it's for whatever reason. So it's I I hope that that's going to swing back and balance out eventually,
I think
where
it
people
will. I
are,
think it will.
yeah, just
It'll all
accepting.
settle down. But right now, that's, to me, I mean, if we all just took the time to show a little kindness, and a lot of times kindness is just saying something when you normally wouldn't say something. It's like
Yeah,
saying, "Hey, you were really good today.
yeah,
Thanks for showing up." Something like
yeah,
it can make somebody's day. I don't know.
for
Get off
sure.
the
No,
soapbox now.
no, hey, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
I'm a big believer in, you put positivity into the world, you get positivity back. But the reverse is also true.
100% the reverse is true. It's got to be true. Or yeah, definitely, definitely. Um,
Well, Albert, thanks for taking the time. I knew this was going to be a good interview. I've been looking forward to the conversation. You're going to have to come back when you get the next big thing.
love to. Yeah,
Talk
for
through.
sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, once I get the next back thing, we'll let you know, or maybe you'll find out. I don't know.
Great, I might find out.
Yeah, you might find out. Hopefully, hopefully. It's so you never know when it's going to happen, but I'd love to come back next time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple little things before we wrap up. Anything that you're currently working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Right now, I'm actually taking some personal time.
You deserve it.
Yeah, I deserve it. Taking care of my mom a little bit, and yeah, it's when I'm back to it, which is going to be fairly soon because you can never take too long
It
of a
takes too
break.
long, right? Right.
Yeah, I'm actually, starting to kind of grapple with the other side of it, which is producing.
Oh, yeah.
So there's been something that's been brought to my attention that I'm very keen on. And it's been something in the back of my mind for years to be on the other side of the lens. I feel like that really creates longevity in careers,
Does, yeah. Yeah,
right?
I meant to ask you if you had any desires to step behind the camera at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a big part of me that wants to direct,
Mhm.
and I think that's definitely going to be something down the pipeline. But I do want to learn about producing. I definitely want to be in that realm for a minute, just to have that as well in my arsenal, because I do believe it's like I said, longevity in career, and I don't think just focusing on one thing is, one, sustainable, but two, um, like, acting's very far and few in between,
Right. Yeah, you
so
need something to fill the gaps in.
exactly, you got to fill the gaps in. And I'm also someone who really enjoys helping others succeed.
Yeah.
It's always been my nature. So and I feel like being behind the camera can, facilitate that, and also give me that sort of joyful satisfaction of of helping productions and helping people who want to do something.
On producing, it can be as involved, depending on the project. It can be very involved, or it can be just, here's some money. But if it's where it's involved, you're going to wear like all the hats.
Yes. Yeah. And I like to be involved. I do want to be involved in those kind of things. I think it's interesting. It's I think when you stop learning, things start to get a little dull in life. So it's also something that seems very challenging to me. So that's why I'd like to step into it.
Right.
What's funny you bring that up. That's been something that's gnawing at me even more and more as I get older. I really, there's been so many stories that I've had ideas of stories, or also just life stories that I've really wanted to either put as a TV series or film. And now that I'm going to have probably way more time, I think that's in the very near future, whereas directing is probably a little bit further.
Right.
In my career, writing I think is going to come in pretty quickly because it's been gnawing at me. So it's just funny that you asked me that.
The time is now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's either now or you never know what happens tomorrow. You could be gone. So you're right. You got to just start. And starting sucks. Honestly,
it's the hardest part.
It can be such a pain.
I always say that with the gym. The hardest part's just getting to the gym.
Getting to the gym. Yes, you're like slugging. Oh, I gotta get to this thing and finish an hour. But by the time you're in it, you just
it's great once you're there.
Yeah,
it's tough to get. Albert, where can we find you on social media?
Best place is Instagram, albert.nicholas, Nicholas with an H. Not without it.
The correct way to spell Nicholas.
Yeah, you know what? My mom would disagree with you on that one. When I was born, she wanted Nicholas. So my first name is Albert Nicholas.
Yeah.
And so she wanted Nicholas without the H. And my dad being my dad, did the exact opposite, and it became a source of conflict for many years. But yeah, it's all good.
My son's name is Brett, and I begged his mother to just spell it with one T, because I was a Brett Maverick fan, a Maverick growing up, James Garner.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't do it. She put the
double, didn't she?
She doubled it. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, she was right.
Yeah, I don't think my mom feels that way still, but I'll ask her, do you ever feel like dad was right by putting the H?
Oh, I can tell you that's a no.
That's going to be a no. Exactly. I'm going to test that theory later today and let you know how that goes.
Yeah, I haven't told her that I think she was right, but she was right. She was right. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, yeah, the second T was probably needed. Unless he's a cowboy, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Albert, thank you so much. Let's definitely plan to do this again in the future. I've had the best time, and yeah, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. It was awesome.
Well, it was fun. Okay, hold on one second. Really enjoyed that one. Albert Nicholas. Went a little long on that one because I was enjoying the conversation, and I'm recovering from a few different illnesses, and those who have been watching the show regularly know that. Excuse me, I've still got a little bit of that kind of crapped up feeling in my throat, but I'm feeling better. So because of that, I was a little more talkative today than normal, but just absolutely love the conversation. Albert is an excellent actor. Been following him for a while, and he's definitely worth your time to kind of keep an eye out for. I'm sure you know about Avatar, The Last Airbender. He's in one episode, but he's terrific in it. He does just an excellent job. It's a very good live adaptation of the anime. So if you're not watching that one, give it a try. I think you'll like it, especially if you liked One Piece. You're going to like Avatar. American Girl. He plays Trey. excellent in it. And he's right. It's a shorter movie, but very family oriented. If you've got younger daughters and probably some sons too, they're probably playing with some of those dolls. So definitely check that one out as well. American Girl, Corrine Tran. Our friend Jason Wong is also in it playing her dad. I think we touched on most of the things that he's been in. I didn't bring up The Good Doctor. He was really good in that. He had a recurring role as Jonas on Motherland, Fort Salem. We talked about Nancy Drew. 50 Shades Darker, he got to play a waiter in, so I was kind of amused with that. We talked about the astronauts, iZombie, Van Helsing, 100, X-Files. He has a small role in a DirecTV produced show called Rogue. I always remember that one because I was running the call center and had on the call floor, they had probably 50, 60 large TVs. And since they were producing that show, they ran Rogue episodes constantly. So the show's excellent, and I've sat and watched it at home, but I have watched without hearing it probably a couple dozen times just from it playing in the background. Legion, Lucifer, The Magicians we talked about, Unreal. He had a little part in too. So he's been on a lot of shows, very experienced actor, but I still think he's just getting started. Young guy. I think we're going to see so much more from him. He's talented. He's talented. So I hope you enjoyed that one, even with that we ran a little long. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you. So glad that you're here. Today, we put out episode 760. You can find all of those audio and video on our website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. If we're doing anything in studio, going on location, covering a convention, it'll be on the website, meistercon.com. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please just subscribe. Really help us out as well. We mentioned Seinfeld several times during that interview. If you're a Seinfeld fan, we've got a Seinfeld playlist that you can check out. We've had many of that cast has come on the show, so check that playlist out. I think you'll enjoy. All right, I better wrap it up because I'm losing my voice again. But thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Two Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. You know, not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. You know, those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to IMDb, imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.